Hello and welcome. This is Angie with the CountryChicCottage.net here with a sponsored video from Cricut. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about what Cricut machine you need to buy, and we're going to compare the Cricut Explore Air 2 with the Cricut Maker. So I'm going to have actually 5 projects for you today, and one thing I want you to keep in mind while we're going through these is that all 5 can be made with the Cricut Maker, while only a couple of them can be made with the Cricut Explore. So the way I try to think about it is that the Cricut Explore is sort of more of a craft machine for maybe the beginner crafter or those that only want to do a certain set of crafts, whereas the Cricut Maker is kind of an upgrade because the Cricut Maker will do everything the Explorer will do plus more. So if you don't want to be limited to the crafts you can do, the Cricut Maker is the one for you. So let me show you why. So let's start by talking about the blades. So the first blade is the fine point blade, and this one comes with both the Explorer as well as the Maker. Then you have the deep cut blade. The deep cut blade is an extra add-on that you'll have to purchase, and you can use it with both the Explorer and the Maker. So you'll notice that these both have the same style of top on them. This type of top can be used for the Explorer and the Maker. Now, when we move on to Maker-only tools, which are these 3 here, you'll notice a different top on these. And this is part of the adaptive tool system, and the blade that comes with your Maker is actually the Rotary blade. So it actually looks like a rotary cutter for fabric, just on a smaller scale, and that's exactly what it does on the Maker machine. So it actually rolls as it cuts instead of drags like a blade would. Now, the next blade they came out with is the knife blade. The knife blade looks more like a craft knife, but for your Maker machine. Now you can compare that with the deep cut blade, and you can see a huge difference in the size, and so there will be a huge difference in the materials that you can cut. Next up is the scoring wheel. So it is possible to score with the Explorer machines, the kind that have this top, but you'll actually need a scoring stylus, which looks like a pen and goes in the pen holder. When we're talking about blades that go in the blade holder, the scoring wheel is available only for the Maker. Now it actually has 2 ends that are easily interchangeable, and this scoring wheel has both a single and a double scoring line depending on what you're working on. So let's talk about some of the projects that you can make with each of these blades. Now your fine point blade is for things like paper, vinyl, iron-on, thinner materials for the fine point blade. The deep cut blade allows you to get a little deeper and into some exotic materials. So I actually did a few cuts on some exotic materials using this deep point blade. So the first one is actually plastic canvas. So I just made actually a couple of bookmarks with a heart cut out with my deep point blade, and I actually did this in the Maker machine, but it should work in your Explorer as well. And you can see you can get pretty detailed cuts. I did try a slightly more detailed cut than this with like some star shapes that were really small within the bookmark, and that did not work well. So just remember, when you're working with plastic canvas, all this open area affects the detail of the cuts you can get. So that's one point when working with materials like plastic canvas. Now, I also tried cutting some Coke cans. So all I did was cut the Coke can away with a pair of metal shears and then flattened them out and added them to my mat. Now, you want to make sure these get as flat as possible to get the best cut possible. And I will give the cutting settings I used on the CountryChicCottage.net if you're interested at all in cutting recycled aluminum. But a few pointers. So the first thing is that because the Coke can maybe varies in thickness throughout and it may not get completely flat, like some areas it will cut completely through and other areas it will not. And all you really have to do, it does score the material enough that you can bend along those lines and it just breaks away easily. So then you can remove any of those pieces that did not cut completely just by pulling on those and breaking the score line. So that's just one tip when working with aluminum cans. Now, I was able to cut out a few flower pieces that I then stacked into a fun little flower shape. So not super simple to work with, may take you a few tries. So if you think you're going to use one Coke can and get a flower perfectly the first time, I would use caution there. I think you're going to need several attempts to get a perfect shape with recycled aluminum. All right, next in our lineup is, of course, the rotary blade. So the rotary blade comes with your maker. It's not an additional add-on, it just comes with it. And it's perfect for cutting fabric. And felt is another one of my favorites for the rotary blade. So I actually made a couple of projects with the rotary blade as well. The first are actually some felt ornaments. So when you're working with felt, generally you think of felt as a fairly thin sheet-like material. However, they do make really thick felt. So you can kind of see the differences between the thicknesses of the two here. So this gray felt is actually a 3mm thick felt, which is actually above the recommended thickness for cutting with the Cricut Maker. But with the rotary blade and the pressure I get from the machine, it actually compresses this material enough where it fits within the maker, and I actually got it to cut. So we'll go into specific cut settings on the countrysheetcottage.net. But know that like things like felt and craft foam, you can go slightly over the recommended thickness size and get a pretty good detailed cut. Now I will say, like, these are fairly basic shapes. Really detailed shapes did not work well with this felt, as it would kind of pull out where the details were. But overall, I was extremely happy with this. Now, to get the rotary blade to cut through really thick material like this, I actually had to run it through multiple passes. To do this, when your Maker machine ends its cut and it wants you to eject the mat, hit the green C button again, and it'll run through another pass instead of ejecting the mat. So if you do not eject the mat, hit the C, run it through another cut, it will go directly over where it just cut for a really precise cut again and again. And I think I ran these through 4 times to cut them. And then I added, so this is the felt piece, and then I added a little something special to the front. So I cut some flannel as well. Again, the rotary blade does a great job with fabric. So this fabric, I didn't have to add any backer or anything like that because the rotary blade does that job for me. So you can take fabric, apply it directly to the fabric mat, no backer required, and cut a variety of fabric pieces like flannel. So then I just continued on with the flannel on my rotary blade, and I actually made, so this is, I would call this like a mug rag because it's fairly small, but you can also make shaped pot holders as well. So I cut all the materials needed for this with my rotary blade. So the flannel for the outside, both sides, but there's also some internal parts that you can't see. The first is this solarized fabric. So this is actually a heat barrier, and you need 2 of these, one for both sides. And it's kind of like a really thin lame fabric, so you know, pretty strong, but really, really thin. And the rotary blade did a great job with it. It also needed some insulation, and this is actually, you just need 1 piece of insulation for the inside, and this is actually the cut that the rotary blade made. So this is a fairly thick piece of batting or insulation, and the Maker and the rotary blade cut it out perfectly. So all the pieces to make my little mug rug came out with my Maker and the rotary blade, so great tool for all kinds of different projects. Now we'll kind of talk about the knife blade and the scoring wheel together on this next project. So the knife blade and the scoring wheel are both additions to the Cricut Maker, so you'll need to purchase those separately. But you can do a wide variety of things. So the scoring wheel really helps on scoring odd materials. Think foil papers, acetate, that type of thing. It really gets that extra pressure needed where you cannot get that with the Cricut Explorer. The knife blade cuts all those thick materials beautifully, including like wood and leather, with just the knife blade and the Cricut Maker. And again, you can only get this with the Cricut Maker. So these leather bookmarks are actually, I used the scoring wheel itself to emboss the leather with a name in this case, and then just some lines in this other case. And then the Maker actually takes the scoring wheel, scores all the lines in the leather, and then it prompts me when it's finished to insert the knife blade, and then the knife blade cut the leather to size. So it's kind of a combination of two tools, and you can see that the scoring wheel is not only for paper. So while you paper crafters might love the scoring wheel, everyone else loves it as well for projects like adding an emboss to genuine leather. So we made, first of all, we cut plastic canvas and did just some simple bookmarks. This can be done Explore Air 2, Cricut Maker, either one, deep cut blade, and you can cut plastic canvas into simple shapes for bookmarks or for your other craft projects. And then we went a little wild and we actually cut a Coke can. Like, I went crazy, right? So I cut aluminum cans with my Cricut Maker. And this is just the deep cut blade, so the Explore Air 2 or the Maker would do this. So really, really thin metal. You could do with either one. I've actually done copper with my machine as well before. So it's kind of, if you want to make projects with really thin metal, you can do that with either one. And then I jumped into more of projects that the Maker excels at. Fabric is one of those. So from these ornaments that use like a really thick felt to this really awesome flannel. So if you're really into fabric crafting, you want to cut fabric without any kind of backer. So you don't want to add any heat and bond to the back. You don't want to add any interfacing. The Maker is the only machine that will do that. You cannot do that with the Explore Air 2. So you'll need that rotary blade that I showed you a few minutes ago for projects like this, where you don't want the material itself to have any backer. And then I went and did this little kind of pot holder, mug rug, whatever you want to call this. But again, with the fabric, so the flannel, and then all those internal pieces. So I showed you that it could cut like things like batting and that heat barrier material. So things like that, from very thin and delicate to super thick, like the batting, and of course this felt that I showed you just a few minutes ago. The Cricut Maker is the way to go with that for fabric crafts. And then I showed you two of the other blades that only work with the Cricut Maker, and that's the knife blade, and then not really a blade, but the scoring wheel. So I actually made these embossed leather bookmarks. So the scoring wheel is not just for paper crafters. Yes, it is awesome for paper crafts, but for things like leather, it's great as well. So you can emboss that leather with things like a name or just some lines and make some fun bookmarks, or, let your imagination run wild with this. Think about the things you can do with genuine leather, your knife blade, and that scoring wheel to emboss it. Like, tons of different possibilities. So I hope you enjoyed these few projects that I made today with my machine, and I hope it helps answer your questions about what Cricut machine is right for you. Now, we've got tons of Cricut videos on our YouTube channel. So number one, give us a thumbs up on this video. Number two, subscribe so you don't miss any of the future videos. And then number three, scroll back and check out all the materials we've cut. We have been working with the Cricut Maker for over a year, and I've cut tons of different materials. So if you are wondering if the Cricut Maker or the Explore Air 2 will cut a certain material, look back on our YouTube channel or comment below. Tell me what you want to see me cut. I'll let you know if I've cut it before, give you a link to the video, or I will put it on my list for addition in a future video, because some of these materials that I cut today actually come from reader suggestions. So and like this plastic canvas, the aluminum can, that type of thing. So don't let us go by without trying to cut your favorite material, so you'll know which Cricut machine is right for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time.